So much media, so little time. Who keeps track of it all? That would be me. This is Bob Andelman, and this is the Mr. Media Interview, recorded live on blogtalkradio.com on June 3rd, 2008. There's a certain risk, some might actually call it insanity, to producing true indie films. They're costly, especially relative to the return on investment, time, and aggravation. But still, they get made. Scott Miles made his. It's called Little Chicago, and it's about a young man who returns home after college, hoping his dad will stake him the money to get into the bar and restaurant business. Of course, if his dad were to do that, this would be a short, not a full-length motion picture. Miles wrote, produced, and starred in Little Chicago. But if you haven't seen Little Chicago, maybe you know him from some of his other film roles. Those include Remember the Titans, The Patriot, or October Sky. And on television, he was in episodes of NCIS and, one of my favorites, Star Trek Voyager. Scott, welcome to Mr. Media.
Good afternoon. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Glad you could be here today. I'm sure people are looking forward to hearing you talk about this film. I have to say, just to start out, that for a first movie, you made a pretty good one.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. It certainly took us long enough to do it. There's an old adage in the film business that goes cheap, fast, or good, and you can pick two of those. Well, it didn't cost us much, and it took us a long time, so hopefully it's at least decent.
I'm sorry, is that about movies? I always thought that was about dating.
It can be about dating, too, depending on how much money you're spending and who you're seeing, I guess.
Well, I mean, Little Chicago, it has a compelling storyline. It's got plenty of action. Where did the story come from?
The story came from just my need as an actor to want to do something on my own. You spend so much of your time at the mercy of other people's decision-making, which could be, I don't like his haircut, or he's too tall, he's too fat, he's too this, he's too that.
I'm sorry, Scott, are you there? Scott? Scott? Okay, well, we lost Scott for a minute. Hopefully he'll call right back in. Let me read you the description from the DVD box, which I'm going to hold up here if you're able to watch us on the video. This is the story. This is Cal Rowan returns from college to his small southern hometown with one thing in mind: raise $20,000 to purchase a bar in Chicago and never return again. His distaste for the town is made clear to everyone around him, especially his overbearing father, who refuses to help him, on the basis that you can't truly appreciate something unless you earn it. Cal soon seeks out his best childhood friend, Andre. Let's see, get him back on the air here.
I'm back.
Okay, Scott.
I'm so sorry about that.
That's all right. And maybe it goes from movies, dates, and phones.
Yeah, really. Cheap cell service, I'm blaming that one on, but we're hardline now, so we should be okay.
Oh, good. Well, you sound fine. So I think what I was asking you about was where did the idea for the story come from, and what was the purpose of producing a film on your own, really? Yeah,
really. It came from, I grew up in a little town called Gastonia, North Carolina, just west of Charlotte, and I'd always heard an interesting little tidbit about my town that it was called Little Chicago. I'd heard this since I was a kid, and it really had to deal with, I think the true story comes from the 1970s. It was sort of a textile town, textile-based, and a lot of those, as you know, a lot of textile mills closed across the country. They started going overseas, so a lot of people were left jobless, and when unemployment rises, crime rate rises as well. So that was sort of the tapestry, I guess, which I based the film. And aside from that, I just really had an interest at that time in what it means to be a friend to somebody, a lifelong friend. And I guess from there, it just lots of hours in front of the typewriter there, so to speak, and it just sort of came out.
Now, but why did you decide to do your own film? I mean, you've been working. I've seen your IMDb listing. It's not like you're lacking for work. Were you just looking for different kind of work, or did what was it that drove you to do this?
I think it's foolishness and ignorance about the process, to be honest. It really was a desire to have some modicum of control over what I was doing, and I just always thought it would just be really cool to, for lack of a better reason, really cool to make a film with all my friends in it, and that's sort of how that came about. I started. I wrote the script. I started, initially talking to some friends. Earl Portier was a good friend of mine from Remember the Titans and Drumline. Some folks may remember him from that. I knew Adrian Paul fairly well, who was the Highlander in the TV series and a bunch of films to his credits as well. Chris Coppola, also a good friend, who's been working quite a bit lately. A lot of Robert Zemeckis pictures from Polar Express onto the recent Beowulf. And, just knowing these guys and knowing I had this great pool of actors that I could just bring together with a phone call, and just, again, really the desire to do something that I owned, and I had the right to say, what happens and what doesn't. I guess you could say it's an ego. I don't know. But, and I've always loved filmmaking. And I got into the acting portion of it because I love storytelling, just the root of storytelling, and I loved films. I grew up just devouring as many films as I could, and I think it was something that was brewing in me for a long time. And when I got the opportunity to do it, I just jumped at it.
Now, Scott, when someone has the title of producer on a film, it's kind of hard to know when that's an honorary title or when the person actually was in the scramble to finance the picture. Can you explain a little bit about your role as producer on Little Chicago?
In my role as producer, I did mostly everything, from gathering the actors to securing locations to securing picture vehicles to helping nail down the schedule along with another young man who served as loosely as our unit production manager. Virtually everything. I was even pushing a broom on location at the end, just saying, we got to clean this place up before we get out of here. These people are so nice to let us use their place. And then on through, my role continued for the next few years, of course, on all the way through post-production and through the distribution process. So I, saw it through every cut imaginable, and there were many, many cuts. We did reshoots a year later, and set all that stuff up, and then started navigating the distribution process, which was really the part that I knew the least about, and it's a wonder I made it through it. But we're out there now, thankfully. It's a long road, but like you said, there are some producers who the credit is almost bought. Maybe they made a phone call and secured an actor, and thereby they get paid a little money and maybe a little percentage, and they get a producer credit, and that's the only time their hands ever touched the project. But no, it was a labor of love for me, so I had to carry it all the way through.
Oh, a labor of love for you. So asking you how much the budget was shouldn't be a big deal, right?
If you want to know, I at first I was really hesitant to tell people the budget. It was just something that I was always told you don't do, especially before you get a distribution deal, because you're always afraid they're going to give you just that or maybe a little under until you'll make it up on the back end. But we actually spent $75,000, and since we're out there now, I'm really proud of what we were able to pull off for that amount of money. The actors that we were able to bring in. And we had 22 principal actors in the piece.
Oh.
The amount of locations we shot in, and the look of the film, I think we've got a really high production value for the cost. So I'm really pleased about it.
$75,000. I was thinking that this had to be considerably more than that. That's amazing because I mean, you know, you managed to get the story in there. You've got some action in there. You've got respectable cast. The production values are good. It seems like you got your $75,000 worth on that.
I think so. I think we got a lot of bang for our buck, and you know, and I can't by any means say it was all me. It was the collaboration of a lot of people, and a lot of people just putting in. I mean, we paid everyone, but it was a lot of sweat equity. We didn't pay anyone very much, and I pulled a lot of favors along the way to do it. But you know, and there were a lot of people, and it was one of the reasons. You know, I was living full time in Los Angeles at the time, and it was one of the reasons I chose to set the movie back here in North Carolina, because that being where I'm from, I knew that, you know, if I was going to make a movie on this micro budget, really, that I had to have a lot of favors. And in Los Angeles, no one cares about your little film. They want to know how much you're going to pay them. But here, everyone was so excited to be part of the process. And we had people donating vehicles and locations, and just letting us in their homes for nothing, just no more than the sake that they got to be part of the process. And that's one of the many ways we pulled it off. So we had some very kind and generous people that helped us through.
And apparently you're not one of those guys who doesn't ever want to go home again.
Oh, no. I actually I live back in North Carolina full time now. I get out to Los Angeles when I can for the important seasons here and there. But, you know, my family's here. My entire clan, as they say, my mom, my dad, my brother, his son. I now have a young son, and it's hard to raise a family in Los Angeles. And I just felt like I was spending all these years out there constantly missing out on people's lives and my family's lives. And I decided at one point, well, you know, if I can't do this somewhat back east, I don't want to do it. And it's interesting, I've had a lot of success from this market, and I just love it here.
So the movie cost $75,000.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a dangerous question: have you made that back yet?
Not yet, actually. We're in the process. I mean, we just released back in late November, so it's still in. You know, it takes months and months. I mean, the early lifespan of a film to start recouping some of its money is after about the first 2 years. And it's just now getting out to international markets. A matter of fact, the distribution company actually just requested a dialogue list from me, which is just, a simple list of every piece of dialogue as it's spoken in the film, which means that someone's getting ready to subtitle it. So it's going to another country somewhere. They haven't told me where yet, but that's an indicator that it is being sold overseas. And that is a big part of your return. We release straight to DVD, and going straight to DVD can take a while to see that money back. But your big money's in the international markets, and we're just now starting to tap that. So hopefully over the next year and a half, 2 years, we will start to see that back. And it won't take us long to get in the black. I mean, hey, it's only $75,000, right?
Well, that's why I was curious. Yeah, I'm sure it's a lot of money when you're raising it to make the film, but by comparison to other small movies, indie films, it's not a lot of money.
It's most people's catering budget.
Yeah, there you go. So did you do any of the festivals? Did you go that route? What take me through the distribution machine.
Yeah, definitely did. We premiered in 2005 at the Temecula Valley International Film Festival, which is in California, about an hour and a half out of Los Angeles. And we've also had our East Coast premiere in 2006 here at the first annual Charlotte Film Festival here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And a few months back, just went down to the Macon Film Festival in Macon, Georgia. So we've hit a few festivals, but as we weren't picked up from a festival, we were actually contacted by the distribution company York Entertainment, and they liked Adrian Paul, a whole lot, thankfully for us, and it's one of the great reasons we were thankful to have Adrian. Just beside the fact that he's a great guy, they were interested in the fact that Adrian was in the picture, and I think he does pretty well overseas. So that's sort of how that came about. We weren't plucked from a festival by any means. We didn't get into a Sundance, and nor did I even submit to a Sundance. I didn't think we'd get in. A lot of politics involved in the bigger festivals. So, but it certainly has been an interesting road, and hopefully I'll get to do it again with a little bigger budget next time, so I can pay everybody a little more.
Now, are you do you have people who are involved in the film who will get a piece of it if it earns out, or were they paid and flat out? How did that work?
Oh, definitely. I do have some that we paid for their time, and thank you very much. But there are quite a few people who have pieces of the film. Some of those first couple of actors I named there, we're sharing profits with them. The director, of course, the financier and the like. So, and of course, the distribution company rightfully wants their split as well for putting it out there. But that's sort of another way to get these things made. If you're not paying people a lot up front, is to give them something if and hopefully when things start going really well for the picture and big returns start coming in. So it's spread around a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And Scott, the movie you said I think you debuted it in 2005. Mm-hmm. Late 2007, it became available on DVD. Here you are now, you're still promoting it. Did you ever imagine when you started writing the script that this was going to be a multi-year commitment on your part?
Not so much. It's funny, when you're writing the script, and it's been a very big learning process for me as well. This is the first film, I've acted in quite a few, but it's the first one where I've taken on so many responsibilities. You kind of sit there and think, well, I'll just write this and we'll make it, and within a year it'll be out, and we'll start seeing money right away, and that's the way it goes. But no, for us, we had to find the film in post-production, even as much as you find it when you're writing it or when you're actually shooting it. And we spent a lot of time, and the folks who were editing it, which happened to be the director and his wife, who were also working full-time jobs. He was teaching at North Carolina School of the Arts and teaching cinematography classes. So it was sort of like we were eking it along bit by bit. And we went through a lot of cuts, and we test screened it a couple of different times. And actually, the cut that aired in Temecula was a good deal different than the cut that aired in Charlotte, because we would keep, I think the cut that aired in Temecula was about 1:50, and we realized, wow, we really have to tighten this up, and we hacked about another 20 minutes out of the film and got it down to 90 minutes, and distributors really love that 90-minute mark as well. Mm-hmm. So it was a very long process, and I didn't anticipate, because we initially shot in 2003 with a reshoot in 2004. And here we are in 2008, and I'm still after it. So wow. I had no idea it would be this long.
That's amazing. I mean, I work on books, and it's always amazing to me that I may get it written in 4 to 6 months, but a year later I'm lucky if it's out, and I just find that amazing. And then it follows you for years. But I can't imagine starting on a film in 2003, still being here in 2008, talking about it. That's a major commitment. And now during the course of that time, I'm guessing, you were working on, you were doing other work, right?
Yeah, not as much as I'd like, obviously, but actually at one point, by the time I moved back from Los Angeles, I actually took a bit of a break from the business. I got a little bit burnt out because I was just constantly eating and breathing this film, and trying to navigate those waters, and getting to a point where I was just fed up with L.A. and really had a yearning to come home, sort of in the same way my character in Little Chicago does, and learns that home is really, not to be corny, but where the heart is, and you can find good things about your home even if you initially leave there going, well, I really want to spread my wings, but it's just an amazing process, and someone once told me that the average for an independent filmmaker from stem to stern is about 7 years. So I may have about another 2 years to go on this.
Wow.
Before I totally just say, okay, well, that's done now. But and I've been working a bit recently. I've got another film that's just been released internationally and should be released soon domestically, called Dismal. And that's a horror film with a guy named Richard Reilly, who was in Office Space, if you remember Tom, the guy in the body cast from Office Space, and another guy named Greg Lee, who was in Dark Angel and quite a few other films and doing a lot here recently. And I just wrapped another film, a good role in another film last month here in Charlotte, an independent called Insignificant Others, with a fellow, remember the Titans castmate named Burgess Jenkins, who's been working quite a bit, and quite a few others. So I've still been keeping busy.
I'm thinking about this. I guess when you started on this, you were still living out in Hollywood, but now you're in North Carolina. I'm thinking most people, when they've made an independent film, part of their goal is to go from wherever they started, usually whether it's Ohio or New Jersey or Florida, and then wind up in Hollywood. You've kind of gone in the opposite direction. Has that made having a film career more complicated?
It's interesting in that I started acting in this market, and yes, it can be complicated. But in the same token, when you're in Los Angeles, you have the feeling, well, I have agents here and managers, and they have the power to negotiate bigger fees, and you can get it on the ground of hopefully bigger projects. But in North Carolina, when I started acting here before I moved to Los Angeles, and even now since I've been back, I have consistently gone out on better projects, better material, with more credible actors and names in it than I ever did in L.A. I was getting auditions for bad trucker pilots and just all kinds of weird fare there in L.A., but I actually booked October Sky from North Carolina. I booked Remember the Titans from North Carolina, and a few others. So it's just always been strange to me that here in this little market that you have some of these great films come through here, and luckily I don't know if it's bigger fish, smaller pond syndrome or what have you, just a smaller talent pool. If you break it down in percentages, and I don't know what that percentage would be, but I'm sure you could show I've done a lot better percentage-wise here. Now, that may be also because you get lesser volume, you get less opportunities, but some really good stuff comes through here, and I've been really fortunate to get in on that.
Bigger fish, smaller pond?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't want to go so far as to call myself a big fish, but it definitely is a smaller talent pool. And that was the other thing in L.A. I would go to these auditions, and you could kind of look around the room, and you go, well, I'm not really an established name by any means. Then you can look around and see a Rick Schroeder sitting across from you, or somebody else, where you go, well, that guy was on a show for 6 years, and I've seen this guy in all these movies and national commercials, and it starts tapping your ego a little bit. You start going, well, why in the heck would they pick me and fly me out to Canada when they've got these guys who people recognize? And that sort of becomes the struggle. Yeah, you get bigger opportunities, but you've got bigger guys standing in front of you as well. Unless they really want to go, hey, we want to cast this guy that's sort of an unknown. It's tough. It's tough, but I'm better for having gone through it. I think I enjoyed my time in LA, and I certainly satisfied all my curiosities there as to what it was about. But man, I'm glad to be home.
Will you try to mount another film on your own?
Yeah, I think so. I'm in talks with a few people. I've got a horror script I've been working on for some time, and I've got a few people interested in that, and I hope so. It's sort of a wait and see. I haven't been pursuing it that hard because I feel like I still have loose ends with this one to tie up. And it's also hard to go, panning for other people's money when they go, well, the last one, have you gotten all that back yet? So we're still in that process, But I hope so. I learned a lot, and it would be a shame to just throw all that away. So.
Any good stories from trying to get money from people for your movie? Either people who came through, or probably the better stories are those who did not. But I'm just curious.
Honestly, I didn't go to a lot of people.
No.
I've got one sort of a downer story. One guy that we were going to meet with, who had financed a film or two here. The week we were set to meet with him, he unfortunately passed away. So that was kind of a bummer. But we actually had one single financier that gave us all the cash, and he was just. And it's somebody we've known for a long time, and he was really gracious and just wonderful about the whole thing. He said, "Look, I really plan to lose all this money, so I'm doing this to give you a start and to give you a leg up. So if I get something back, that's wonderful. If I don't, I understand, and that takes the pressure off a little bit, and is very rare. But just a wonderful guy that put in the money there. But I do remember at one point that after he put in some of the money, we were meeting with he and I and my wife actually helped produce the picture as well. We're set to meet with another gentleman who, as we understood it from another contact, was interested in putting money in. And actually, right in the middle of the dinner, we realized that this guy was hitting our guy up for money for his own film. So, everybody's looking to get their little project financed. So, fortunately for us, we didn't have to go out to 15 or 20 people before we got that yes. That first guy that we knew said, "Here you go," and that's sort of how the whole thing rolled.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the people involved with the film with you. I saw that Earl is it Poitier? Is it like Sidney? Okay. And no relation to Sidney.
I'm sorry?
Earl is not related to Sidney, though, is he?
He is not. But for the purposes of the distribution, we say we don't know. He may be. He doesn't like to talk about it so much, but he could be. He could be. It's Poitier, right?
Reminiscent when we bring it up, yeah. And so did you meet him on Remember the Titans?
Oddly, I did not. My role in Remember the Titans was I had a decent role at first as a heartbreak story for me, and I don't want to bore you with it, but I'd been cast in a very large role. My agent called me and just said, "You got it. You're working the entire run of the shoot." And I was, this was like in, 98 or something, I guess. And, I quit my job. I'm telling everybody I'm going to go work with Denzel Washington. I was trying to save money for Los Angeles, and this was going to get me there. I'm out. So I go, and about a day or two later, my agent calls me up, and she's bawling. She's crying her eyes out. And I'm something's wrong. What's happening? She said it was a mistake. You were kind of choice number 2, and there was this Canadian kid, and he couldn't get his work visa together, and somehow at the last minute they got it worked out, and so you're off and he's on, and that kid turned out to be a guy named Ryan Gosling, who incidentally in Ryan Gosling's huge now, and incidentally in the movie played Earl Poitier's roommate, his character's roommate. So that was really odd, but in that process, they actually came back and gave me another role, a character named Fred Alderson, who in the initial script was sort of miscellaneous, good guy that turns about the same time and sort of sees the light about the race relations there at the same time everybody else does. A bit of a throwaway character, and he was peppered throughout the script, and it got rewritten and rewritten and rewritten, and by the time I got it, it was just a couple of days. So. And then eventually that got cut. But I didn't meet Earl on that. Actually, Earl and I had a manager in common, and we hit Los Angeles about the same time in 2000. And my manager said, you should meet Earl. And I called him up, and it turned out he lived about 3 blocks, literally, down the same street from me, down the same stretch of road. He lived 3 blocks away. And so during my years there, we became fast friends. And, I still talk to Earl often. And, yeah, he's been in some good ones, but he's a great guy, and he's actually working on this horror movie with me. So hopefully we'll get that up and going.
Very good. Well, I think we have a call here for you. Someone's been very patient. Let's see what we've got here. Hi, do you have a question or a comment for Scott Miles?
Hey, I do, Mr. Media. Enjoying the show very much. And Scott, I got a chance to meet you at the October Sky Festival in West last year. And, Mr. Media, this is a big festival that is put on around that movie and that book with Homer Hickam. And you were very, very gracious, and it was wonderful to meet you there. And my question is, what's it like to portray a real person who you've never met? And did you actually ever meet the guy that you played in October Sky, that character Jim Hickam?
Oh, no. I get that question a lot from, and I remember that question there at the festival. I didn't get to meet Jim Hickam, unfortunately, and it is odd playing someone, a real life person, because you feel sort of a sense of responsibility to them. You want to be honest, but you also want to be honest with the material you're given. And I actually didn't meet Jim until the premiere of October Sky. So that it was definitely neat to meet him. And Homer's a great guy. He's also if you know anything about Homer Hickam, he's an author, and he's got a new book out himself called Red Helmet, and keeps very busy. And we're hoping that's going to get made into a movie sometime soon. But it's definitely odd. And quick story about October Sky and meeting people that you're playing, and it's kind of embarrassing on my end, but I'll tell it anyway. And it also speaks to how little you're told on these bigger budget pictures. I got the part in the film, and I didn't realize this was a true story. No one told me it was based on a book. The book had not been released yet. They'd optioned. Good for Homer. They had optioned and started making the film before the book had actually gone into publication. And so I didn't know anything about it. Nobody ever pulls you aside and says, hey, this is what you do. They give you the script and say, show up this day, and you work on your material, and that's it. But I'm standing there, and I'd already met Jake Gyllenhaal at the time, who played Homer Hickam in the movie. And we're doing a shot where there's lots of extras, and this is maybe my second or third day on the film, I think, and we're out there at the coal fields, and there's tons of people running around. And so I've already met Jake, who's playing Homer, and this kind of silver-haired, nice gentleman walks up and says, "Are you playing Jim?" I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "I'm Homer Hickam." He stuck out his hand, and I'm thinking it's an extra. I'm like, "Oh, okay, you're Homer, sure," and shook his hand, and he starts talking about things, and I'm like, well, geez, this guy knows a lot of stuff. And I look down, and he's wearing a flight jacket, and it's got a big NASA emblem on it. And then I look over to the other side, and it says Hickam across it, and I just feel like such a dunce. I was like, oh, you're okay, so you're the guy, But he was very charming, and he's a wonderful guy, and that movie's had a great life, and God bless him. It's he deserves all the success he's gotten, and yeah, like that caller just said, they have that festival up there every year. This little town depends on that festival quite a bit in October of every year. So,
well, it was great.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Sure, thanks for calling in. We appreciate your time.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Wow, that was a good call. Do you get?
Yeah, I was such a dummy on that one. But it's like I said, you don't find these things out until someone tells you. And no one told me, so I found out the hard way. But he was very nice about it. So.
Well, you don't expect real people to walk up to you, while you're shooting a movie that they're in.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I think we can give you a pass on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Now I want to ask you about some of your other roles in a minute, but I was going to ask you. I noticed I was looking up some of the people who worked on film with you, and this will only be interesting to me, I guess, but because I'm in St. Petersburg, Florida, I saw that Richard Claybaugh, your director, is originally from St. Petersburg, and then Earl Portier went to school in Tampa. So I know that's just strictly coincidental, but what are you going to do? Hey, Scott, we've got another call here. Hi, do you have a question or a comment for Scott Miles?
Is this us from the 909?
Hello?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Yeah, is this... Okay, you got us. Okay, hi, this is Ezekiel, and I got another guy on the phone. His name is Big Sugar. How you guys doing?
What's up, fellas?
Good. How you guys doing?
Hey, so check this out. I'm a Hollywood screenwriter. I just recently directed my first feature. We're just going to Blog Talk. I thought this was interesting. We don't know that much about what's going on this show. It just seemed interesting. So could you give us just a really quick rundown on what's happening?
Okay.
Okay,
sure.
Who are we talking to? I see October Sky.
Right. This is Mr. Media, and my guest is Scott Miles. He's produced an independent film called Little Chicago.
Great.
And you can find out about that at littlechicago-movie.com. Is that right, Scott?
Yeah, or you can go to scottmilestv.com, and there's a link to actually buy it. It's on Amazon. You can see a synopsis and the like, yeah.
Excellent.
And you'll be able to, when the interview is over in about 15 or so minutes, you can listen to the entire interview, and at the beginning you'll hear a lot of talk about independent films and how Scott produced and wrote and starred in this movie. So you should find that pretty interesting.
10 pounds of distribution, right?
Yep.
Great. Big Sure, you got any questions?
Yeah, I was wondering what kind of genre is the film? It sounds gangster.
It's more of a drama, but it is action. It's actually being marketed as an action film because we've got a couple of fights, a little bit of gunplay in there, some elements that I knew had to be in there in order for it to sell. It's really tough to sell a straight drama, unless you have some really big names in there. So you have to lean towards those genres that sell really well. Horror is one of the big ones. Action is one of the big ones. Or, unfortunately, sex comedies, if you want to make a kind of sticky sex comedy, American Pie-ish kind of thing. Those are the three genres in my dealings with the distributors that say, hey, this is the stuff that sells. You know, if you've got any of this sort of stuff, call us back. But
now, is this your first film, or is this a continuation of a career?
I've been an actor for a number of years, but this is the first one I've ever written and produced. And I've done a few shorts and the like, but this is the first one that I've gotten out there myself, and I'm just now sort of getting into.
Hold on, you're telling you've been around for a bit, so the name Ezekiel does not ring a bell to you?
Ezekiel sounds familiar, yeah.
You remember that stupid show On the Lot?
Yeah.
I was one of the semi-finalists on that.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. I remember you. You did the yeah, totally. Wait, was your short the out there in the desert with the swords and
yeah, Unwritten Law.
Oh yeah, that was very cool, man. You're a heck of a filmmaker, brother.
Thank you.
How funny. Ezekiel,
that's very cool. Out of the thousands and thousands of films, I remember this guy's short. It was awesome. I loved his style.
Did we even chat? Have you and I ever exchanged messages through the internet?
I don't know. I think I may have commented on your film and just told you I love the visual style of it. But I do remember the picture because I'm a huge Tarantino fan. And I remember it had just.
Please do not call me a Tarantino.
Oh, really, man? You don't like
no,
the...
as much as I love Tarantino, it's like, here's the thing, like, for me, it's like most of my influence comes from the Disneyland rides. I try and make everything look like a Disney ride. And I never got the Tarantino. Maybe because it was the music on that short.
I think it was the music, yeah. It had that sort of Dick Dale and the Dale Tones kind of guitar to it. Yeah, totally. But no, it was visually, it was stunning, man. It was a great job.
Thank you, man. Thank you. So tell us more about your movie. We're in here late. I want to know about this.
Well, Ezekiel, let me do this. We're gonna finish up the interview in a few minutes, and then you can hit the button and hear it from the beginning, because Scott has really already talked quite a bit about it.
Okay.
But I appreciate you calling, and we watched On the Lot in our house, so nice job, and we appreciate you calling in.
You guys, good luck.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Ezekiel.
Bye-bye.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye. All right, well, it's
what a wild coincidence, man.
Yeah, wow. What was so let's come back around. What was the toughest part of making your own movie? We'll set aside financing, because it doesn't seem like that was at $75,000 and one investor. That doesn't seem to be it. What was the toughest part? Was it the time it took, or were there other things?
The time and commitment, I think. Just constantly having the patience to rework the story and being open enough to let it reinvent itself. We had an ending on there which I wrote, and then when I saw it, I couldn't stand it. It was schmaltzy. It was bad. It was just, let's be frank, it was terrible, and it really capped off the movie in the wrong way. And I just had to put my head back to the drawing board and say, how can we tie all this up? And with Richard's help, Richard Claybach, whom you've mentioned, has been a DP for many, many years, and really is a fantastic shooter. And he himself has got a new film, incidentally, coming out called Iborgs. You can check that out, iborgs.com, I believe it is, but iborgsthemovie.com, I believe. Really interesting sci-fi picture. But I think just the commitment to stick with it and keep at it and try to let it become what it's going to become, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. You start with this. When it comes down to it, one person doesn't make a film. Dozens and sometimes even hundreds of people make the film, and you have to let them do their jobs. And they're all filmmakers in their own right, from craft services to the PAs to the grips to without these people you couldn't get it done. And for me, the toughest part was just getting through the process and getting it. It was such a weight on my shoulders for the longest time. My worst nightmare was to have gone through all these years of this thing and just have it sit on my shelf. I wanted it sitting on other people's shelves somewhere, video store shelves or outlet shelves somewhere. I just navigating those waters, especially the distribution end of it, is so difficult, and it's so hard to know who's being honest with you and who is going to give you the best deal, and even what the best deal is. Mm-hmm. That's just a whole other field. You can make a great film and just really blow it in the distribution, because it's hard to know what you're doing if you've never done it. How can you? Mm-hmm. So the time commitment is the toughest part. Dealing with the material over and over and over.
You've probably seen it enough that you don't need to see it again. But I mean, have all of your family and friends, have they all seen the movie at least once now?
Oh yeah, definitely, and they've all gotten a kick out of it. And I don't know if it's because they actually just like the story, or if they just get a kick out of the fact that I did it. But they have all bought it and supported it, so for better or worse. But I really enjoy how the film finishes up. The last 15 or so minutes of the film, I'm really proud of, and I think are really gripping, and especially the last little bit with Adrian Paul there is really sort of special and poignant. So
that was clever. I have to agree. I think that the ending there was very. I don't want to give anything away. It's very clever. It's a little. It doesn't. The only criticism I might have is it's a little apart from where the movie seems to be going for the first half, but it's got a nice payoff, and so you're willing to accept, certain things about it.
You're being very kind, but I know where you're going, because I have the same feeling about the film myself, and I think I'm able to step away from it after all this time. But, hopefully people, in some ways forgive us for the middle if they make it to the end, you know what I'm saying? Because there are certain, I really tried to make a straightforward film, a linear film that didn't have a lot of flashbacks. We ended up having one at the very beginning, but I really wanted to tell a story from A to Z. And in filmmaking, that you are pushed toward a very specific structure, and sometimes if that structure is not turned on its head just a slight bit, it can become sort of predictable. And there are moments in there that I feel we are predictable, but I really do feel those last few minutes make up for that, and better to finish strong than to than the other way around, just for the whole ending just to fall apart. If you're really trucking in the film and then people go, well, what happened there? Sort of like the end of The Sopranos or something. Leaves you that big what?
Yeah, the flashback at the beginning of the film, I think, was perfectly appropriate. I mean, you wanted to know, and I was going to actually comment on the relationship between your character and Andre, because it's so strong, and you could see, reading afterward that you guys have known each other for a while and are friends and have worked together. You can see that on the screen because it's a completely believable relationship that. 1 minute you're very tight and you're really glad to see each other, and the next minute you want to just beat the crap out of each other. But that's, let's face it, a lot of guys' friendships are like that. We're not emotional in the way that a lot of women's relationships are, but the anger rises and falls pretty quickly too.
Yeah, I think it's funny you're saying that. I was having a similar conversation with someone yesterday. Is that guys can come along and get in a fight and kind of duke it out, and then 5 minutes later they're fast buddies again. We don't hold grudges for very long as we get everything out there on the table and take care of it. And I don't know why I was so interested in the theme of friendship at the time and what you would do for a friend, and maybe it's because I was in Los Angeles away from all the people that I had grown up with. But then thinking about, Earl was a great buddy of mine and still is, and I don't know, I just had those themes rolling around in my head, and and with that flashback, I think what we wanted to do in a very short period of time was to quickly establish, there's history between these guys, because the big question became, even when I was writing the script, is why would this guy come home from college with a degree and potentially a lot of things working for him and jump into really dealing drugs with this guy and put everything at risk? Well, it's because, he would go that far for a friend who's in trouble. And that's what my character did in the film.
Well, and it's true. I mean, that was, I wondered about that. When I saw where that was going, I thought, let me think about that. Because, I mean, I hold my friendships, my buddies, pretty near and dear, and I pretty much think I'd probably do pretty much anything for them. I thought, dealing drugs,
Yeah.
That's a little bit, that might be kind of a close call, especially, being in your hometown where everybody knows you and sees you. I thought, well, that's a little strange. But, it's if you buy that, guys can be that tight, and of course, I don't want to give away the start of the film because that really explains the closeness and the relationship. Listen, sometimes we watch a movie and we suspend a bit of disbelief, and there's a little bit of that here. But listen, it's a well-told story. It's got far more than $75,000 worth of production value to it, I think.
Thank you.
The ending is unexpected and interesting. So, and listen, that's why I wanted to have you on the show. I was very intrigued by the product and the process, and I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it a little bit.
Well, Mr. Media, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and promote our little picture, and maybe hopefully soon we'll be out there with a bigger budget picture and that sort of thing, and that'll probably have Earl Portier in it too, if I have anything to say about it. So.
I could understand that. And so let me make sure, because I was going to give out, as we close, I was going to give the URL that I gave before, but would you rather people go to scottmilestv.com?
Yeah, go to that. The Little Chicago site is something we threw up as a template actually a couple of years ago and hasn't gotten a lot of attention since, just because we just had to secure the URL, and we threw some photos up. But you can certainly check it out, littlechicago-movie.com, and check it out there. But if you go to scottmilestv.com, there's a Buy Little Chicago link. It'll shoot you over to Amazon. You can check it out there. Or if you want to see the trailer for it, I'm on MySpace, myspace.com/Scott Miles, the actor. I've got a little trailer embedded up there, and you can check it out. Check out a short trailer up there as well.
You got ahead of me. I was just going to give out your MySpace address, and you beat me to it. So. Oh,
sorry about that. Well, actually, if you go to scottmilestv.com, there's a link to the MySpace as well, so you don't have to type in that long URL. You can just click on there, and it'll shoot you to the MySpace. And there's a trailer up there for my upcoming picture, Dismal, and there's also the trailer up there for Little Chicago.
Very good. Well, Scott, I really appreciate you joining us today on Mr. Media. Thanks so much for your time.
Hey, thank you. I do appreciate it.
All right. Good luck with whatever follows, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you again.
Okay, I hope so.
All right, Scott. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And so obviously you've heard the address. If you'd like to learn more about Scott Miles and his film Little Chicago, go to scottmilestv.com, and you can also follow the links from there to Scott's MySpace page. And, of course, for dozens more celebrity and media newsmaker interviews, surf over to our main website, www.mrmedia.com. That's where you can listen to my conversations with the stars and creators of Army Wives, 24, The Big Bang Theory, Girls Before Swine, Tell Me You Love Me, and many others. And many are available with full transcription. And please think about writing an online review of Mr. Media or marking Mr. Media as one of your online favorites, whether you listen to us on Blog Talk Radio, Blueberry, Zencast, Odeo, or iTunes. And tomorrow, if you're available, come back. My guest at 1 o'clock Eastern on June 5th will be Michael Uslan. Michael is the producer behind Will Eisner's The Spirit, the upcoming movie, and The Dark Knight, starring Heath Ledger and Christian Bale. Folks, thanks so much for your calls and for participating in the web chat. I really appreciate you sharing a piece of your time today with Mr. Media. Hope you'll come back again very soon.